Dear learners and listeners, welcome to this session. Today's topic is globalization and its implications for peace. This topic is part of the course BGP Conflicts and Peace Global Perspective. This course is part of the certificate program in Peace Studies and Conflict Management. I am Dr. G. Uma, working as an assistant professor in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Welcome to this session. Let us start with understanding the term globalization. Globalization as a term used to refer to accelerate and strengthen mechanisms, process and activities among nations which promote global interdependence. This in turn leads to incremental global political and economic integration across regions and continents. From the point of view of global politics, it is increasingly seen as a transforming and revolutionary concept. This whole concept of the globalization is based on the deterritorialization of political, economic, social and cultural life, as well as creating interdependence across national borders. There are inherent benefits of the concept in terms of knowledge generation, sharing of technology and cutting of cost through pooling of resources and efficient management of production and distribution. However, there are certain grey areas in globalization that as a learner and as a listener we need to understand. Like for example, in terms of integrating production networks leading to the closure of select domestic industries, free movement of persons, that is both skilled and unskilled labor across borders, and free trade, thereby hampering domestic economic interest and fomenting local grievances against such integration. I will explain you all little with an example. For example, domestic industries. If a particular country has enough resources to produce a particular product, but without the help of the state, automatically the particular industry may face like the particular industry may produce the particular product with the higher cost. At the same time, the same product can be produced in a lower cost by another countries. Whichever the country produce the particular product in a lower cost may export to many countries. In this situation, the consumers automatically they prefer to buy the product which is available at the lower rate in the market. Certainly, they do not prefer, even though it is a domestic product, they do not prefer the product which is selling at a higher price. So, in this situation, if you imagine in this situation, automatically domestic industry may suffer due to the free movement of goods and the import of the certain products and services from the other countries in a lower rate. That is the first problem with when you talk about the grey areas with regard to globalization. Second one is free movement of persons, skilled and unskilled across borders, that I will explain to you in a later stage in this lecture. Free trade. These things, when you agree for a free trade in an international body, automatically the country is bound to accept the products which is coming from the other countries, whether it is priced in a higher rate or lower rate. In this free trade situation, most of the time the domestic products, the domestic manufacturers may suffer due to the higher production cost, due to the import of domestic producers, they suffer due to the higher rate of production. So, in this situation automatically it hamper the domestic economic interest, which fomenting the local grievances against such integrations. So, globally multi-vector forces of integration have significantly reduced the notion of distance, but it also have given birth to forces of localization and dissent. See, for example, I have explained in a certain hypothetical situation. In this situation, if the local products, the import of products from the other countries, if the import of products from the other countries hamper the interest of the local products, sometimes it may give birth to the forces of localization, and the people they started talking about the significance of localization, and sometimes they may dissent against importing the same product from other countries. In the contemporary world, in the 21st century, if you look at it, the term globalization and free market economy and neoliberal economic policies, all these terms are freely used. Most of the time we do not understand the implications, whether it will bring the positive and negative impact in the global economy, domestic politics. Most of the time we do not understand the real implications, whether the implication is positive or negative. Without understanding that, we freely hear the term globalization. So, in the contemporary world, domestic political economy is exposed to international pressures and market forces. The state now has relatively less control over investment, trade and capital. In short, globalization has drastically changed the way nations behave and interact in the global marketplace. It also has supported the concept that the world is a global marketplace and the citizens of any nation are global citizens and a part of global society. As discussed earlier, there are tangible benefits of globalization. In order to reap the benefits of globalization, there is a prerequisite of knowledge, skills, capital sharing and access to technology. Many states in the international system have neither or have very less of these resources at their disposal. You must be heard that the organization, namely OECD, that is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It is an international economic organization founded in 1961, having membership of 34 countries, mandated for stimulating world trade and economic progress. This organization addressed this question and states that with respect to globalization, there are numerous unresolved issues. Highlighting those, it states that the relationship between globalization and democracy is precarious. With this background, I have prepared this lecture. With this background, I prepared this lecture with the following objectives. After listening this lecture and studying this unit, you should be able to understand the importance of globalization as an approach to peace, unique circumstances in which the globalization was promoted, nature and features of globalization in different aspects of life, contribution of globalization towards peace, prosperity and development among societies, and critical appraisal of globalization and its relevance for the peace and security at international level. Let us start with understanding globalization and integration of productions. The process of global integration has facilitated and at times compelled production adjustments, even complete transformation across states. In particular, the management of production cost and benefits from trade liberalization can be a catalyst to strong political opinion, both in support of and against further liberalization. The adjustment of pricing and production creates difficulties for those nations which rely on only a few commodities for trade. The export oriented growth and industrialization leaves underdeveloped nations with difficult choices because of instability in the prices of traded goods. In select sectors, not only the prices have been volatile but have also slumped over a period of time, creating problems in export income of any nations as well as fund allocation to critical social sectors such as health and education. This I can explain you little further with an example. For example, any nations, they created the wealth by taxing the certain products, and then the nations can able to create the wealth by exporting of goods and services to the other countries. With regard in the globalized economic situation, most of the time, as I have explained already, in certain sectors or certain areas, if a particular country is not able to export the goods and services due to the availability of the goods and services from the other countries, and if the other country, if they are able to provide the same goods and services in a lower prices, some countries it is difficult for them to export the goods and services to the other countries. If the country suffers due to the problem in exporting the goods and services, automatically it affects their income. If the country is not able to generate the enough wealth and income, it is difficult for the particular nation or countries to allocate the enough fund for the critical sectors like health and education. This we one need to understand. Secondly, a large number of export oriented developing countries have also faced considerable adjustment challenges. For example, the low cost and state subsidized Chinese manufacturing has adversely impacted many Latin American countries, which have seen reduced market share in Europe and United States. Like liberal economists, they are the strong proponents of globalization. According to liberal economists, they have argued that countries might adjust with the rapidly shifting division of labor and reconfiguration of manufacturing and regional production centers. As per their point of view, the incentive of growth across newly competitive sectors would be complemented by state capacity in making provision for social and fiscal transfers. This in a way would offset the challenges associated with global competition. However, this is not meant to overlook the pre-industrial structures as already existing in many developing countries. The opportunities which have been generated because of rapid industrialization in those developing societies has led to a major urban-rural divide and also mass migration of labor from rural to urban centers in search of better opportunities and jobs. This change in the demography of any country has accelerated radical socio-economic transformation. For example, if you look at the data with regard to globalization, automatically the primary sector, the contribution of primary sector, especially agriculture and allied activities to the economy, has been reduced over a period of time. So, automatically the secondary and tertiary sector's contribution has increased in many countries. So, if the primary sector, that is the agriculture and allied activities, if they are not able to generate the enough employment opportunities in the rural areas, automatically many from rural areas, they try to migrate to the urban areas in search of job and other opportunities. If there is more migration from rural to urban areas over a period of time, sometimes the urban centers is not able to provide services to the migrant population. This may create a different kinds of problem in the urban centers. So, the acceleration of economic activities in the urban areas may bring the various kinds of problem in the urban centers. That is the another. So, for example, one more example I can give you. Most of the developing countries, skilled and unskilled labor from the most of the developing countries, they try to migrate from the developing countries or underdeveloped countries to the developed nations. These kind of migration to the developing countries, developed countries also like I'll repeat it. For example, another example is the one migration is from rural to urban migration. Next migration is the migration from developed nation to the developing countries. If the more people, both skilled and unskilled, if they migrate to developed nations in search of job and in search of better opportunities, developed nation also need to provide the services to the migrant population. They may face certain kinds of problems. Sometimes these countries are not able to provide enough services, especially in the social sectors, to the migrant population. So, next let us see the effects of globalization. The theory that globalization has been accelerating growth, reducing poverty and inequality has been criticized by the wide range of scholars. The recurrent financial and economic crises across the globe since 1970s have even resonated in many developed countries. Martin Wolf raised the temperature by invoking, quote, the enemies mustering both outside and inside the gates, unquote, and claiming that the anti-globalization argument constitutes, quote, the big lie, unquote, the praise usually reserved for the Nazi propaganda technique. John Ravenhill, quote, in the year 2011, page number 376. According to the available data, people living in extreme poverty has decreased between 1981 to 2005, between 1981 and 2005, and in case the pre-2005 PPP conversion factors, that is purchasing power parity conversion factors, are the ones based on the 2005 price survey are taken a base. Over a period of 2.5 decades, the reduction in poverty can be seen as a good news. However, with the substantial increase in global population, according to the new estimates, millions of more people have been added to the poor population, leading to substantially offsetting the percentage decrease in poverty. As the World Bank's poverty czar summarized, quote, while the new idea data suggests that the developing world is poorer than what we thought, it has been no less successful in reducing the incidence of absolute poverty since the early 1980s, unquote. John Ravenhill, 2011, page number 384. Let us see the different perspectives with regard to globalization. There are two basic factors that one has to take into account while analyzing such kind of data. Firstly, whether the percentage has decreased over a period of time, and if it has decreased, then what is the base year to evaluate the data. The second aspect is the purchasing power parity. The value of dollar in 1980 may not be the same as in 2005. So, the actual quantity of food and other necessities that any person can buy will be very different. Also, one has to differentiate between the fact that countries with higher income and wealth inequality have commensurate inequality in health, education, social security in comparison to those low income countries which face higher average levels of health problems, illiteracy and other community problems. Therefore, there is a direct relationship between income inequality and social problems. It can be safely construed that inequality incubates crime, and with the inability of unskilled men in high disparate societies to play traditional role of social and economic provider to their families in terms of family income, they resort to unfair and illegal means. The level of social violence, crime and drug use witnessed in very unequal societies show the malefic effects of skewed distribution of social relationships. The demonstration effects of income disparities as well as differences in lifestyles have a cascading effect on society. Further, a large number of people shift from agriculture and join labor force to fulfill their rising demands for basic amenities and education for their children. A large number is added each year as the agricultural land is used for setting up industries and capital creation, making the people below poverty line feel as a deprived sections of the society and fuming about the injustice meted out to them. Next, let us see the inequalities further. The bigger flaw in the new liberal argument is that it has the least concerns with regard to the widening gap between the rich and poor within countries, but is keen to address the income disparities among the countries. In terms of reducing international inequality, the plea given is that there is a lack of worldwide redistribution of system similar to national welfare states. The inequalities at the international level would also trigger migration across nations. The best example is the lure of jobs and better opportunities in Europe. I have explained you earlier. Now I can give you an example of European example. The average income in European Union is 15 to 50 fold higher than the standard average income of sub-Saharan Africa. As the maritime border between select European Union nations and sub-Saharan Africa is loosely guarded, and the travel time between the two continents is barely a few days, a large number of people from sub-Saharan African nations are reaching out to Europe. So, next let us see the globalization, prosperity and peace narrative. Before we will see the globalization, prosperity and peace narrative, I would like to little further explain the Europe and sub-Saharan Africa example. You can see many are migrating from Europe to sub-Saharan Africa due to the higher income in the European Union countries. What happened now, if the more and more people they enter into the European nations, sometimes European nations find it difficult to provide all the services to the migrant population. These difficulties may affect in a certain way in all the European countries. Let us now see globalization, prosperity and peace narrative. With regard to globalization, prosperity and peace narrative, the growth in global markets have supported efficiency through competition, better management of resources and the division of labor. The cost, distribution, production and large market also offer greater opportunity for people to tap into more diversified and larger markets around the world. This has facilitated access to more capital, information, technology, cheaper imports and large export markets. However, the demand and supply equilibrium do not assure equitable distribution of income and benefits to all. This was explained in the International Monetary Fund issue brief in the year 2018. The globalization has created a cooperative framework among nations on a range of non-traditional and non-economic issues having transnational footprints such as climate change, immigration and legal issues. At the same time, the demonstration effect and the inflow of foreign goods, capital and services into country can generate incentives and demands for transformation in the education and health system. Next, let us see globalization, poverty and inequality, the antithesis. First, let us see the process. Those who correlate the globalization with the widening inequality draw attention to number of processes. First, they portray globalization as a game of victors and failures in the sense that those who benefit do so at the cost of others. This has invigorated attention in the core and periphery model advanced by the world systems theory. Next is the between country inequalities are exacerbated by the tendencies implicit in the global trading system particularly the principle of free trade. Free trade has been criticized for protecting the interest of rich states by providing access to the markets of underdeveloped states without exposing to similar vulnerability. This explains both the pressure exerted by the industrially advanced, mainly via World Trade Organization, on other states to embrace economic openness and the persistence of anomalies such as continued agricultural protectionism by the United States of America and European Union nations. Third, the spread of globalization is related to increasing rural poverty and widening rural-urban income divide. This occurs largely because pressure from the global economic liberalization have upset agricultural practices in the developing world, compelling peasant farmers to convert to cash crops for greater profits and incrementally abandoning the subsistence farming which used to meet local needs of the local communities. Fourth, globalization has nurtured within the country disparity through at least two methods. It has strengthened social hierarchies. The trickle-down effect of commercial power has become robust as businesses have been able to enjoy increased political leverage through their ability to move investment and production, while trade unions have weakened because agitation for higher wages or demand for improved conditions would threaten their job. Next, let us see politicization and fragmentation. The deficiencies of global multi-level power are reflected in an augmented politicization of international institutions. The growing necessity to keep international institutions as a working forum has left the governments with no choice but to accept international regulations as indicators of international cooperation. Like with this background, the first is education and knowledge to create a skill which can give jobs and better lives to the people living in poverty. Secondly, better health facilities would provide better avenues for growth and personal development. Globalization, one way it is bringing the opportunities to expand their economy for the particular country. Another way, it has created certain inequalities in the countries. Some countries, due to the high cost of production, they may not able to compete in the international market because of the low production of the same products by the other countries. So, globalization, one way we think that it has given the opportunities for the economic development, other is it has created many issues and many problems which the country or nations need to address. Thank you so much.